I'll do a clumsy intro. I'll do
And you're already rolling.
Just asking what's in the box.
What's in the box?
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, no,
Just asking what's in the box.
I'll do a clumsy intro. I'll do
you're already rolling.
Welcome to the greatest movies of all time podcast. This is part movie podcast, part debate thing, and part clumsy game show. My name is Jesse, and sometimes I watch movies. Today I am with Gabriel.
Hello, Jesse.
Hi, Gabriel. And I'm with JB.
Hey, everyone.
And we're going to talk about a few movies. The way it works is we talk about some movies that could be greats, might be greats. We don't know. We'll debate it. We'll vote about it. And at the end, we'll vote. If it gets the majority, it becomes one of the greats and we'll refer to as one of the greats for all time. We have a few in the bank already. If it doesn't, no hard feelings, but it's just not one of them greats.
Jesse, for clarifying, what's the majority on this show?
The majority is the majority of talkers, debaters, if you will, right? Today there's 3 of us, so they only need 2 votes of great to be.
Can our listeners call in?
Currently the phone lines are down. We're still in the midst of a pandemic, but once we get those lines backing up, we'll have that. We'll have that email that we have IT working on. IT's working on an email for listeners' submissions to engage in the conversation with us, but
Yeah.
we're not there yet. So soon, and soon when we get into like the great debate about the greats, maybe we'll pull into those listeners. That the great debate about the greats is for another show and another time. We haven't got there yet.
Great.
In the meantime, this is episode 3. We're calling Fight Club 7, where we're talking about
the sequel to Big Hero 6.
where we're talking about 2 David Fincher
Soundtrack
films.
by S Club 7.
And so we're going to work through some Fincher films. We're not going to do it every week, but he will be our director of focus. Fincher will for the next few weeks, month or so, as we get through his stuff. Because he's a guy who people put his film on a lot of top lists, so we got to investigate.
Oh, Dave.
In the meantime, as we usually do, has anybody seen anything else besides our homework for the week? Movies that might be not great, but
Yeah. So not too long ago, in the very recent past, I watched a little film starring one Paul Dano and one Mr. Daniel Radcliffe.
Okay.
Little film called Swiss Army Man.
Yeah. JB seems happy about this one.
Uh-oh.
I've never seen this film. It's it's A24, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's an A24.
Yeah. So it's a fun little film written and directed by the 2 Daniels, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert. It's a fun film. It's a madcap little slapstick dark comedy. I think it is a good film. I do not think it is one of the greats.
Which, not to interrupt for the new folks, that's during our kind of pre-show talk, right? These are films any of us present that we think, just to kind of, as we exhaust all the movies of all time, we have to just knock some off the debate real quick. So that's one of them. Unless one of us chimes in and says, "Hold your horses. This is one of the greats. We'll talk about it later." But anyway, so as we establish ourselves, get the rules of the game.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, if one of you thinks I'm overstepping my bounds here and declaring this not one of the greats, by all means, you feel free to jump in and shut me down. I think it's very inventive. It's a very creative film in its storytelling. It's definitely not a film for everyone. Very high level of flatulence in this film.
That's what I heard. And yeah, that's what I've heard. Yeah. Even in the trailer, I think they communicate that.
Lots of farts. just
Party
all
to the
farts.
party.
But yeah, it's a good film. It's a fun film. I enjoyed it. I do not think it's one of the greats.
It's still a film I want to see. I think JB's recommended it to me at one point early on.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it.
Early in our friendship, he's like, "You got to see this film." And
Yes.
I said I will someday. All right, that's cool, but not a great. JB, have you seen anything lately?
Yeah, mine is just totally twirling on the. I really thought this segment was more about just talking about shitty movies, but Gabriel brought up a great point. Just could be not one of the greats, which totally changes my approach.
I mean, it's anything you watch that, but you're just like, hey, this might not be this
Right.
might not survive
Right.
the great debate. But if you ever think a movie has a fighting chance, you're like, hey, But
I think Gabriel's description of Swiss Army Man is something I can definitely stick by. I think that's fair. I don't think I'd put it as one of the greats.
But if you're like me, I watch a lot of crap as well. I enjoy it.
Oh, I love it.
Lot of schlock. A lot of schlock. So you're not off base either with saying, hey, here's a crap flick. It's just you're just letting us know I spent the 90 plus minutes watching it. Yeah,
right.
Gotcha.
Tinker Tailor's Soldier Spy.
All right.
Good movie, not one of the greats. British spy drama, slow burn, Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman, we love him.
Oh yeah, we love Gary
In
Oldman.
our short term on this podcast, we already celebrate his work. We don't talk about it, but we celebrate his work. We've never mentioned it, but yeah.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But yeah, I watched that one this week. It was a pretty long film, but it's worth the watch. The one-time watch, the OTW, one might say.
Yeah, the OTW.
Yeah.
I've never seen it. It's on Netflix, right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. They all kind of merge together. You press a few buttons, you watch a movie.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely one I've seen.
I haven't seen it.
I struggled to get through that film. It was a little too slow for me.
Yeah, it's a slow one, for sure. Never really picks up either. Never picks up.
No,
I'll be honest. I'll be honest. That sounds to me like a stumble upon watch. Like if I'm flipping and it's on and it's only like 5 or 10 minutes in, I'd watch it. But I can't see myself like launching it. Like let's do this.
You got to be real bored, which is convenient for me. I was.
Well, speaking of stumble upon watches, Saturday morning I get up, got the coffee, pop on the TV, some sort of movie channel, and I think it was on HBO, which is nice. Like on the streaming platform, you have the option of like East and West broadcast, and it shows both at the same time on the screen.
Yeah.
And only one audio is playing. So I just went to that. And on one was Varsity Blues. And boy, was I tempted. Hadn't seen Varsity Blues in a long time. And on the other side of the screen was The Switch, starring Jason Bateman and Jennifer Aniston. And I was like, what do I do? Right? So 2010's The Switch, starring Jason Bateman, Jennifer Aniston, Jeff Goldblum, Juliette Lewis. Got the pick. I'd seen it before, so this was a second watch. But for those not knowing, it's a rom-com type situational comedy thing. Jason Bateman switches his sperm with Patrick Wilson, who was in like...
he's the villain in Aquaman.
Wasn't he also in like The Conjuring and those like Insidious? And some of those, yeah. Which I really like. But anyway, so Jason Bateman switches his sperm with Patrick Wilson's because he's donating it to Jennifer Aniston so she can have a baby. But of course she doesn't know, right? Years later, meets the kid. He meets the kid and it's like, oh my God, that's my kid. Compelling stuff. I mean, it's not bad. It's just not good, but it's a Jason Bateman romantic comedy with Jennifer Aniston. Jeff Goldblum is Jeff Goldblum, his like stumbling self, but really good.
Jeff Goldblum is very good at being Jeff Goldblum. Yeah,
it was Jeff Goldblum to a T, and I enjoyed it. Not even in the same atmosphere as one of the greats, but still it was an enjoyable Saturday morning. So that's what I watched. And if you haven't seen The Switch and it's on one day, you'll be okay if you sit through it.
Yeah, no, I've seen The Switch. I've seen Varsity Blues. I think if I had to make that call, I think I would have gone Varsity Blues.
You know, it was back and forth for a minute, like one would even be fumbling a football in their hand. But when it landed, it's that Jason Bateman factor, right? Like with Ozarks and everything else. And he's so likable. And he does, like Goldblum, he kind of plays Jason Bateman every time. So just watching him, I think, was kind of what brought me over. And since we're talking greats too, just to put in a frame of mind, right? I was thinking the other day, hey, did any of these greats get anything notable? Have they already been recognized? And just so it's in our heads, 7 Oscar nominated for Best Film Editing, and also the BAFTA for nomination for Best Original Screenplay. Just in there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, we don't dive deep into the critics because, you know, we're the advisory board. We're the deciding factor. But
yeah, I don't need critics telling me how to feel about this film.
Critics or the Academy. Hey, but at the same time, we'll recognize it, right? We'll look at it. But that's it. Yeah. So Fight Club. Nope. 7. Where do we want to start?
Let's go chronologically. Let's start 7.
Yeah, let's talk.
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
What else?
No. So I think this is a non-traditional sort of cop procedural. Shakes things up a little bit. It feels less like a buddy cop movie, and more like a, hey, I'm on my way out. You're a fish out of water. You're overzealous, and I'm slow to come to conclusions, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, Morgan Freeman's very methodical. Brad Pitt's a little more gung ho, but not really a loose cannon. I wouldn't describe this.
No. They put him a little bit as emotional.
Yeah.
To, you know, as a way to kind of make the ending, you can see where he's wrestling with at the ending. But speaking kind of like, the kind of that trope of like, you know, old cop, new cop, you know, buddy partnership thing. This watching, that's what really drew me in. That I kind of like really focused on more than I'd ever. Because, you know, once you kind of know about all this, the murder scenes and all that, like, what was I watching at this time? And that was, for me, the highlight in this viewing. The one Morgan Freeman, I just felt like, now also I haven't seen this movie in ages, but now that I'm older,
same.
Watching it, you know, as a 40-year-old looking at it, and I could see in the Morgan Freeman, the older, mature, like you're in that person and you've kind of seen and experienced a lot. So you're not reactionary, you're quiet, you're reflective. And that performance I thought was stellar. And even Brad Pitt at the other piece where you just see the way he plays the youth and the inexperienced role, even though he's not like a rookie cop. He has 5-6 years experience, he says. But still the dynamic of that relationship I thought was balanced really, even down to the fact that Brad Pitt wore baggy, wrinkled, oversized dress shirts.
Yeah. No,
so that was one thing for me that I just really enjoyed this time around.
No, I think they play well off of one another. I think it's compared to watching Pitt act now, and seeing him here, it's pretty, his greenness.
Oh yeah, for sure.
is pretty obvious in rewatching this film. But
that's what I mean too. Like just seeing Freeman just like overshadows him the entire film. Yeah, the entire film.
Very methodical in his portrayal of Detective Somerset. And I really, I think I appreciated that performance more this time than I ever did in any of my previous watchings.
No, same. I was just like, Morgan Freeman, who is this guy?
Where are the penguins?
JB, what jumped out at you with this watching of 7?
Similar to how it's like Brad Pitt sort of green, I think it's also David Fincher sort of green. The fact that a serial killer is basing his kills off the 7 deadly sins seems like maybe lower hanging fruit on the serial killer narrative. But at the same time, it was pretty well done. You could tell that it was a Fincher crime movie, serial killer movie. I think his movies always take this serious sort of psychological thriller tone that, I mean, in a way they're almost formulaic if we talk about other serial crimes that he's directed. But
jumping in on the greenness thing a bit, I think there's, like I said, I think somewhat, especially at the time, maybe that's what made this a little more exciting and interesting. But now watching it years later and seeing a lot of people involved in this film whose careers have advanced and they've matured as artists and things, even like the Trent Reznor work in the music and stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, Trent Reznor, like, it sounded like, 9 Inch Nails did the soundtrack, not Trent Reznor. And even that part, at times, not to jump negative, some of that was even distracting in the piece of, it felt a little too MTV music video 90s at times, especially with the bumpers at the beginning and end, obviously.
That's where Fincher came from.
Well, no, exactly. That's what I mean. That's speaking to like JB's greenness. It's like everybody kind of involved in this, some of the main players, you can tell, which can bring exciting vision as like somebody outside of the realm. They're kind of pushing their own personal boundaries, trying to figure out how to do something they're not established. So I think that works to this movie's advantage. And then, as you said too, in some ways, in later viewings, it exposes some of the I want to say weaknesses of the film, but just some of the less, I don't know. It just exposes some inexperience to the film, we'll say.
Yeah. No, I think what he did, and I think that was one of the things that was so captivating about the film at the time, was he was one of those first kind of young directors to make that transition into filmmaking from making music videos or smaller videos, and then bringing some of those techniques into the filmmaking. Just the really, in certain situations, right, the overly dark lighting.
Yeah, the movie's almost too dark at times. It was one of those, again, it's made for movie theaters and all this, but even at home, like on our modern television sets, I'm like watching it during the day and there's a glare on the TV and I'm like, I can't see what's going on. But then I remember I'm like closing blinds, I'm turning the lights off. I'm waiting for the sun to go down. But I even remember in previous viewings, it's always been a little dark. And I think that really works to the film in places. And then other times the darkness is distracting, as again, I'm too worried trying to make things out. And then, like I said, I don't know if that's, and you sort of, there's a cinematographer, it's all planned and figured out, but in some ways, is that a little too much of because it's beautiful at the same time, but it's not
beautifully grotesque.
Yeah. But it's not beautiful in the way that like Fincher films moving forward as he grew into that. But at the same time, does the subject matter really help it out because it's so dark and because it's so gruesome and grotesque? Maybe it needs to be dark and the dangers and the shadows and the mystery.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a bit, it's not anything that fully, I think, takes you out of the movie, but there's definitely this overemphasis of the darkness of this whole thematic montage, and the way he moves things forward. I mean, one of the things, even in those tight spaces, right? He uses a lot of like wide, full shots to frame things and sort of frame the story and tell the story.
It has that similar look, which we haven't talked about, but I know we will one day. Like the game took a very similar approach, and a lot of wide shots, a lot of darker, shots.
It's super common. Like those full shots are super common throughout, I think, the body of his work.
Yeah.
I mean, you get them. They come back in Gone Girl. They're there in The Social Network. I mean, it is part of his aesthetic.
No, for sure.
But I know we've talked. I think we've talked a bit about what we like about the film.
Yeah.
I think there are some problems with this film.
Yeah, I think so. Like it's gross, dude.
Well, beyond.
No, I'm joking.
I was literally just gonna say, like, beyond some of the extremely grotesque.
As my joke, like that dude's really fat. It's gross.
Not untrue. No, but it's going back to what I mentioned earlier with like the blip of Gwyneth Paltrow's role in this film.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the lack of female characters in general, other than as someone's wife.
Yeah.
Who shows up for a moment to, add some gravity to either the death or the presence of another man. As much as I love Morgan Freeman's performance, I almost feel like he's used in that, like, in a similar way, the magical black man.
Yeah.
That's used in other films to help the white protagonist along and learn and find things and figure things out, right? Trying to lead them down the right path. Those two pieces, I think, partly, I attribute that to the greenness of Fincher as a director. But I think there was, in the other part of it, just the timing, like 1995 versus 2020, right?
Yeah.
I think we all have a greater awareness of some of these things that were pretty standard to find across films of all genre back in, the 90s and 80s and even early 2000s.
No, I agree. I agree with those points as well. And one thing I noticed too watching it is it's a feeling I always remember feeling about the film as well. The pacing, it drags a bit as well. It feels, by a couple points before sort of while they're still kind of investigating the various sins, I almost find myself mentally putting in a checklist, like, okay, wait, they have 4. How many more do we have to find? And I'm like, at that point, I'm over. I'm over I don't need to see another representation of the sin at that point. So it starts to drag. It's just we're in a loop. It's in this little repetitive loop. And then my other piece with the pacing, and I'm just kind of waiting for it to kind of wrap up. And I'm not bored, but I'm just, the pacing piece just bothers me. I get tired of the film. And maybe it could, and then the second piece, the second view, my opinion was changing a bit. It also leaves in this world, it starts to leave, even though it's never fully grounded in reality. It's almost like this idea, it's in this fictitious, allegorical place anyway, because I don't think they ever really tell you the city. Right. It's always raining. It's this idea of this isn't a real city town. One kind of conclusion I came to watching this is this is just a big tale about something else that's loosely set in reality, but not. Because there's even, it becomes a bit farcical even when they see Kevin Spacey for the first time, right? And there's the whole chase all through the apartment complexes, the town, and the entire time Kevin Spacey is shrouded in shadow, and it becomes this like super villain, right? If you will.
It has a very dark man feel to it.
No, it
like
really
that
does.
Whole sequence,
You're right. No, it is dark man, and it's almost, it's not quite laughable, but especially watching it now, you're a little bit like, it's almost silly. Almost in a Sam Raimi Dark Man vibe, and so that took me, that kind of knocked it down a few pegs for me as well. And the way I kind of reeled myself back in was that, well, hey, this is a made up fairy tale land telling this sort of really grim story. but then it does, like, tonally it shifts. I don't want to say absurd, but it shifts in this kind of weird direction with Kevin Spacey moving forward, even to the point with him just like going on his little rant in the police car, and him and Brad Pitt, it's yelling at him, and you're like, okay. I mean, it leads up to one of the most memorable endings of a film, and I think that's why it falls into a great discussion. Because even sitting watching with my wife, who'd never seen Seven, she's into it, kind of falls out of it, and then by the end is like, okay, all right, this could be a great. I don't know.
And the thing that gets me with the pacing is, I mean, we're literally talking about a film that takes place over the course of like 5-6 days.
Yeah, almost 7 days. Almost 7 days, right?
Yeah, that's
it's close, right?
Yeah. JB, what say you?
Well, it sounded like an incomplete thought, but I was thinking about how quickly this film was moving along in terms of a timeline in real life. In movie time.
Yeah, they're like, let's take him out to a field. Let's do it. We got him arrested. We got him ready. Yeah. Let's get him out there.
It's pretty unrealistic there too.
That was one of the most bizarre part, because they build this whole thing, and to your point, it seems like some amalgamation, of multiple cities sort of crammed into this fantasy land.
Yeah.
But it's at times you feel like, is this Chicago? Is this Seattle?
Yeah, Chicago, Seattle, like, yeah.
Then all of a sudden they're randomly out in the middle of what appears to be just very dry land.
Which again, and then also on the imagery side, right? It's very washed out now. It's very like two-color tonal. It's that like orange field.
It's almost like a sepia tone.
Yeah, it's very sepia, and it becomes, and that's what I mean. And it lends into this, like, all of this is some weird, just like you said, grim, grotesque fairy tale, which under that viewing, it then like I start to like this movie a lot. But those are some of my own self-imposed like reflections on the film, making sense as a person who's seen it multiple times since it came out in '95, which I was still in high school, and now someone who's 40s.
Yeah, same here. I watched it in '95. Yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Well, yeah, man, my God, as a high school, like I said, thinking about like high schoolers today, I'm like, man, sorry guys, you don't get something like that to go watch in the theater. But at the same time, is it as appreciated? Like you kind of said, coming out of the music video generation, this was, if you will, kind of a punk rock movie, emerging
very
movie
Nirvana.
maker.
Very Nirvana.
Well, it's very alternative nation buzz clip.
It's 120 minutes, right? Yeah. It's like a movie produced by 120 minutes.
Headbangers Ball, it's all that. Mm-hmm. So the big question, and like I said, I think this is where this thing falls, right? This is a movie that I think visually it's stunning. This is also a pre-Saw era, which we have to remember. Which I think Saw does change a lot of things for our kind of perception. But at the time, there was, I mean, that's why it was such a big deal. Like Kevin Spacey popped up as the villain in the middle. His name is saved until the end of the film. Seeing something like this, it's very commonplace to see movies that kind of present these ideas. But one, this is done by David Fincher. And two, it has that ending that everybody has talked about for since, right?
This 95 was like Spacey's, like that was Spacey's break. I mean, that was The Usual Suspects.
Yeah.
Right. It's Seven. I mean, he's playing these very dark, for lack of a better way of describing, like seemingly complex characters, right? That you get to know very little about who they truly are. Right. You get this glimpse into part of their psyche, but you still, you walk away still not fully understanding or having any idea like who this person is.
Yeah. Which I don't want to get much into Spacey's character, but even this viewing, like you don't know who this person is. and I struggled a little bit. I'm like, is this person I'm seeing as the character on screen? Is this the guy who actually did all these things? Like, I don't know if but then my discussion with somebody afterwards was, well, how would that person even be or act that did these things?
Sure.
So that was just I was like, I think Spacey was miscast. They should have cast somebody else. And then I'm like, well, who the heck would you cast for something like this?
In 95.
In 95, yeah.
The only name that pops into my mind, and I still don't think it would work, is Crispin Glover.
Well, yeah, right. It's only because he would give you the comfortableness of, this is a weird, creepy dude.
This guy is insane, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
he would nail the insane, creepy part, which Spacey doesn't quite nail. But now you watch him and you go, oh yeah, this guy's super creepy and terrible.
But
but that's for different reasons.
I think what works with it's the demeanor, it's the nonchalantness of the attitude towards this grotesque series of murders. This guy,
I think I would have liked him better if he never ever lost his cool. Like when he yells at Brad Pitt once or twice. I think it would have been a bit better if if you said he always kept that demeanor. During the exchanges in the police car, he yells back once or twice, "You're only alive because I allow you to be," or whatever. I don't think he would be that breakable that quick by somebody
who clearly doesn't have control of their own emotions. Yeah, right?
Exactly.
It would take someone who had an equally just stoic demeanor.
Yeah. My feeling is he would be getting, as they even mentioned in the thing, as Morgan Freeman's character, the insightful old man mentions, Kevin Spacey his character is getting pleasure and enjoyment out of all of this. And so I would think, seeing Brad Pitt get so rattled, he would be happy about it versus getting upset and angry and yelling back at him, like proving his power, saying, "Hey, you're only alive because I allow you to be."
Absolutely.
I think that's kind of where I started struggling with Kevin Spacey as.
Well, I think that's a directing choice, and I think I think if you.
Well, it could be a directing choice, or it could be Spacey, like, "Hey, I'm Kevin Spacey. Let me run."
But
this
Spacey
scene.
Was nobody in '95.
It's true. But and neither was Fincher. So who knows who was running that? But then again, Fincher's a very meticulous guy who takes lots of shots, and so probably who knows. But no, I agree.
Definitely Morgan Freeman show.
It's like So
I think we're at.
I'm ready to vote.
Let's
so what
go.
we do here, we just hold our things up. Great, not great. If there's any extra last words, we can talk about those. Explain our votes. But I got mine. I'm ready.
I'm ready as well.
All right, the big reveal.
I'm ready.
All right, let's hold them up.
Not great.
I got not great. That's a sweep of not greats.
That's our first. That is our first not great trifecta.
Because Seven's a terrible film, guys.
7's worse than Onward.
You know what? I don't know that I can disagree with you there.
Oh, nice.
I think for a debut feature film, I think 7 is really good.
Mm-hmm.
I think it falls into some of the shortcomings that people often fall into with their debut feature films.
It's a total OTW. Total OTW.
Yeah, you told us earlier what OTW means, so if you guys forgot, rewind the podcast.
Yep, not happening again.
Are we talking about bands off the wall?
Close.
OTW.
Yeah.
All right. No, so not a great. Listen, I think per our discussion, we still respect 7. It's a great film worth seeing if you haven't seen it. But it's just not one of the greats. We won't refer to it as such, but it's a good film.
Yes.
Speaking of other films, let's jump on into Fight Club. 1999? We got Brad Pitt again. He's back.
We have the greatest use of the Pixies. Where is my mind in cinematic history?
It truly is. I can say when I saw this, I guess I was in college at this point. A friend I was with, we saw it in the movie theater, and obviously, he stood up and clapped during the Pixies, the Pixie song at the end. memory forever etched in my brain. Like just stood up and was applauding. So maybe best use of a Pixie song ever, or has it ruined a Pixie song forever at the same time?
Dun, dun,
Just from
dun.
oversaturation, overplayed. I used to have Pixies that Where's My Mind on a playlist. And one time some dude's like, got to get that song off there.
Nah.
And I'm like, I love it. But he was attributing Fight Club. He's like, get it off.
No, I still, those first two Pixies albums, there's not a bad track on them.
Yeah. I mean, I think anything breakup is good. I mean, only that's kind of the biggest accolades as we get our conversation started, right? Fight Club nominated for an Oscar. Best effect.
Oh,
best effect.
I hear that's a good award.
Sound.
Best visual. Was it visual effects?
It said best effect, sound effects.
Okay, sound effects.
So those
About the Pixies.
Those punches sound good. Also nominated MTV Movie Award for best fight. Edward Norton with himself. So
that is a very interesting fight scene.
Mm-hmm. So it did get those accolades amongst others, but those MTV Movie Awards and the Oscars.
Sure. I mean, so quick summary for anybody who's never seen Fight Club. Like we're talking about film about a guy who's an insurance adjuster.
Yeah. Edward Norton.
Yeah, Edward Norton's an insurance adjuster who's leading this very sort of meticulously curated life, but he just can't sleep. He's finding refuge in these self-help groups or these like group, counseling meetings. And then a woman somehow derails that for him. And he falls into this friendship with a traveling soap salesman.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Played by Brad Pitt.
And
Fight
so,
Club.
yeah, so that's where we start.
And through their friendship, and kind of exploring of what it does mean to be like a human, a man, or whatever, that they kind of stumble into how can you what does it mean to be even alive? They stumble into this sort of initially underground fight club that just kind of spirals into questioning all aspects of society, consumerism.
If not global, at least transcontinental.
Yeah.
Terrorist organization.
Yeah. It goes. Things go off the rails quick for this sort of endeavor that's started off with some soap making.
Sorry, from human fat.
From human fat, which again kind of plays into that theme, right? Where fat they're stealing from a liposuction clinic that they then sell back to high-end department stores.
That's right.
The very people who got the fat sucked out of them.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of movie we're playing with here.
Yeah, we're talking about a movie that's trying to comment on capitalism and vanity and the superficiality of the world we had constructed by 1999.
Yeah. So I think it's many people with Fight Club. Fight Club is this almost like celebrated film by I think people of a certain generation, people of a certain age, probably people who fall in our age group. I can honestly say I remember seeing this movie and being blown away and then watching it multiple times in the theater. I think I saw it maybe 3 times theatrically, if not more. Like, because it was, you haven't seen it? Let's go see Fight Club.
Yeah, it was one of those kind of things where upon first watch, it was something unlike, anything I'd ever seen, really. This was 4 years after Seven and 3 years after Requiem for a Dream.
Mm-hmm.
And it had some of that, like, as Aronofsky calls it, like the hip hop montage, the quick edits.
Yeah, it's when that thing was popping up. What was the other one? Rules of Attraction? There were a couple other films that all did this similar. It was the thing, right? We all
that was like Aronofsky's thing with Requiem, and then others emulated it, and with varying degrees of success. I think it works well here.
Especially if you got the Dust Brothers thumping behind it.
and then the narration, right? So much of it is told from a first person perspective.
So much of it, right?
Yeah.
It's like Edward Norton speaks. As the narrator, which I think that's how he's credited, as the narrator. We don't know who he is.
Mm-hmm. He is he may not be a reliable storyteller, but he is the one telling the story.
Mm-hmm. Which I think that's one thing that works for it is because we, like I said, kind of thinking of the era, and that's where Fight Club falls in this realm of a number of movies telling stories from unreliable narrators, whether directly through a narration or just like or just narrators themselves, the protagonists that are just, we don't fully know what's happening. I think that I looked it up. Yeah, Rules of Attraction is a similar one. In that they're in this just world that we don't fully know what we're seeing, and we're also seeing these protagonists that are challenging the status quo. It's challenging a lot of the kind of the ending of the 90s. The whole kind of 90s culture is that almost grunge alternative culture coming to a head.
They're questioning the lives they've built for themselves and whether or not success equates to happiness.
Yeah. And it's almost that, like, as JB mentioned before, right? It's almost that like Nirvana movement where now the people who are kind of at a very influential age in the early 90s with Nirvana and that kind of challenging of 80s glam rock culture and the music, and having a person like Kurt Cobain out there kind of challenging all that. Now we're seeing that, at the end of the 90s being in pop culture, if you will, in these movies. And so I think that part was unique. The other piece was just unique storytelling where they also challenge the viewer in what you're watching and what you're seeing. Do you always fully understand what's happening? And the whole Brad Pitt, Edward Norton dynamic, because that's the first thing with it. Is this was the era where there were movies that you kind of had to watch twice because the second viewing changed everything. So Fight Club is the first one, like, oh my God, you got to watch it again. And then you watch it again and everything works. Everything. And there's the little tricks, right? Where Brad Pitt's popping up in random spots as quick little one.
Where he's edited himself into.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a throwback to the reference in the film.
Mm-hmm. The whole idea of the creation of Tyler Durden.
Exactly.
And then you see, hey, every line of dialogue works between him and Edward Norton. Every sort of interaction works. And so this was an era where filmmakers were playing around with that stuff. Not to say it's never happened before, but it was much more common upon some of these budding directors to play with the narrative in that way.
Yeah.
This is
directors making films that made you question how much you trusted your own perception of what, like, right? Like, I remember feeling that way with The Usual Suspects. That was a film that I watched it when it got to the end. My mind was completely blown, and I immediately wanted to watch it again.
Yeah, you got to watch it again for Kaiser Sose.
It was well, it's like, what did I miss that I didn't see this coming? And where are the indicators and clues along the way? LA Confidential is another one that falls into that realm, and this one as well. Yeah,
we have this is the era of Sixth Sense, where that it was the same idea, and even films like Memento that are telling the story in a weird way, and you're kind of watching, does this really work? Pulp Fiction is jumping around all over the place in its telling of a story. So messing with timelines and then messing with your perception is a characteristic of movies like this during this time. It was kind of an exciting. I think now we take a lot of it for granted as movie viewers, or we say it's been there, done that. But this was kind of a number of directors all trying to bring their unique take to this. or it was kind of just a reaction to the time. Like that's kind of you were saying, Gabriel.
Yeah. 2 points about Fight Club that this conversation has brought up. The first one being that I think the actual storytelling of Fight Club is a lot stronger than Seven, even if some of the main players are in there. I think Seven was a lot more of just a story to be used as a springboard for the talents of the director and the cinematographer and the sound, like just something to play around with.
100% agreed.
Yeah.
A paint by numbers procedural for the most part,
right?
Done by a very talented director.
Yeah, and to showcase the styles of not only Fincher, but like you said, the Trent Reznor, Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman. Not really Gwyneth Paltrow. Again, she's like, she falls asleep a few times. She's really good at doing that in the movie. Yeah. Second, and yeah, so Fight Club was like actually a captivating story. Second point, not as serious. If Tough Mudders were popular back then, I doubt that Fight Club would even exist. I think they fill the same void.
You might be right.
Just this highly frustrated white collar culture needs a very aggressive physical outlet.
Agreed.
My life is too comfortable.
There's that first world problems. I get everything, and there's a little bit of comment on that, right? By Edward Norton, like all I buy are fancy mustards, and I get everything from IKEA. But you're right, and that is, I think, one of the modern day struggles, maybe with being a fan of this film, is it has that little a bunch of first world privileged white guys like this movie.
You're talking about people who have glommed onto this but have fallen into the very same trap. Like they've fallen into these trappings of capitalistic society, because the thing you learn as you age is, as much as you want to change that system, when you have children and you have a mortgage and you have these things that you have to be accountable and responsible for, as much as you hate that system and it's bullshit, you still have to participate in it in order to just survive. Yeah.
That doesn't make sense at all.
No, it's true. And so it's the problem is that have those, so is the fan base, are those the people who, have kind of just conformed into that, kind of oblivious
about their Fight Club moment. They're dreaming about their moment of blowing up financial centers across the globe.
Yeah, but you're right. Because at the same time, in me, there's a little bit like, it's all right. Starbucks is bad, but sometimes you got to go. Like I can't always go. It's. But that's also, it's interesting. I on a side note, not to really dive into it, I was also, as someone older now, you're watching it, like, I get it, and they do manipulate a lot of the ads with like Calvin Klein and whatnot. But Krispy Kreme has a normal. Krispy Kreme is not. They don't mess with the logo, but yet it also is prominently displayed throughout this film. Which I was like, is this subtle product placement, or what's the message here? But it was just like, that's just a side note. I'm like, for a movie that's so anti-consumerism and corporate things, Krispy Kreme comes off in a positive note. Silent backer, maybe.
Hot and fresh, baby.
Only hot and fresh.
I will say one thing about this film, kind of watching this, it's a similar problem with Seven. And again, I don't know if it's just my attention span or whatnot, but I do tend to get a little bored with the movie around Project Mayhem side of things.
Yeah, so the final third.
Yeah.
It's
where it takes that leap from, this was just a couple people in a bar basement, to, now Jared Leto is like third in command, and there's an army of Project Mayhem people across the country.
Yeah, it's interesting how quickly like they escalate to, this isn't just these random folks that were moving into the house. Like, I mean, you're talking about like 10 minutes of film where it goes from 3 guys standing out on the front porch to 50 guys in the home.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with both of these films, they're both about 10 to 15 minutes too long.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Good point. Yeah.
And there are parts where there are transitions that could have been made sooner and in a cleaner way than the way that was chosen.
Yeah.
That's an interesting observation. Is that a product also though of like attention spans being decreased? You know,
I
is there like an inflation rate there?
I don't think so, because in Seven, right? It becomes the murders become almost these formulas, right? And there were times where I think the camera lingered too long, or a scene lingered too long. There were dialogues between Freeman and Pitt that could have been shortened and would have been just as effective, right? And so I think in Seven, you really could have chopped that down to like right around 2 hours, right? And it still would have had the same impact. With Fight Club, I think it's not a movie that needs to be 2 hours and 20 minutes long. It could have been, again, right around that, like 2 hour to 2 hour and 5 or 2 hour and 10 minute frame. There are scenes that occur. I mean, for one, right? The project, the establishment of like when Pitt disappears and Norton's like running through the house and he's finding these things and they're trying to keep him out of certain rooms and they're telling him that's maybe a good like 2 to 3 minutes too long. Yeah. Or it feels too long.
Well, and just little things like, I don't know how necessary it is, because I hit this thing like, okay, we're doing this. Okay. Oh, that's right. This is in the movie. Even when Project Mayhem, they do their smiley face fire on the side of the building. And then who is it? I don't know if it's the mayor. It's somebody in the city. They hold the press conference and they say, we're going after Project Mayhem. They hold a press conference. And so then Project Mayhem infiltrates that banquet dinner, and then they grab him, take him to the bathroom. The mayor, whoever it is, takes it, and that's when they threaten him, say, "Hey, you're going to drop your investigation for Project Mayhem." It was one of those things, because when that scene hit, I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's in the movie too." Not that it's a bad scene or it's a bad part. It's just it's one of those things. Like, I don't know if we fully need this. I get part of it is saying, "Hey, how does an organization operate like this within the city?" And kind of maintain and grow. Maybe you have to explain, okay, they're intimidating law enforcement.
Or they've recruited law enforcement, right?
Yeah, which then there's also that leap when Edward Norton's arrested or turns himself in, and except for the lead police chief guy, the other 3 detectives are like, we're part of Project Mayhem too,
they're like,
sir.
We're going to do what you told us to do, which is castrate you.
And so you're sitting there and you're like, what? Okay. Yeah. So those parts where I understand part of their necessity and just explaining the scope of this thing.
Sure.
That is manifested so far beyond Edward Norton's character's control, right? It's to show him this thing has gotten way out of hand more. Not only has everything I've known is different and than ever, what I've been doing in my blackout moments far exceed anything I ever imagined. So I get part of it is say, this is something I can never get a handle of.
Sure. So going back to, I think one of the...
Because he can't even protect, his quote girlfriend. He can't even protect her at this point.
That's what I wanted to segue into, right? It's this very much like Seven. Its use of female characters is solely for the purpose of establishing the personality and characteristics of the male lead, right? Or of a male in the film.
And that's my another slight problem with the movie too. It's like, God, this is such a male testosterone driven film.
And even beyond that, when you start getting into and talking about Project Mayhem, and you look at that last, like, there's that scene in the squat house where they brought, a deceased Meatloaf back and put him on the table. You look around, that looks like a white nationalist rally.
Oh, no question.
Like, it's nothing but like shaved head.
No, that thought comes into your mind the second the first recruit joins the house, and the first step is they shave his head in the bathroom.
Yeah, it's almost. Obviously, this was made in '99. But looking at this through a 2020 lens and the rise of white nationalism and the presence of, or I guess the outward nature of a lot of that, and the public display of Nazi flags and swastikas, it was a little unsettling, right? To just kind of see that juxtaposed with like kind of current climate.
Yeah,
no, it was.
Like one of the main things watching Fight Club during the 2000s for the first time was realizing, like, holy shit, like this would have never happened had they had proper coping mechanisms.
Yeah, absolutely. Toxic, like male, like toxic male masculine, like toxic masculinity. That's,
yeah,
for sure.
It's the epitome of repressed emotion. It's manifest in a way that like has run amok.
Yeah.
And it does a good job, I think, of like almost satirizing it through the process of how quickly it escalates and how ridiculous it happens, that even the creator of this movement can't be saved from it.
Yeah, which I think is part of what kind of brings it around, even like when Edward, his eyes are open to it. Like it's going to take me, sacrificing myself almost to get this thing resolved.
So that's where I think the biggest problem for me comes in is if you view this through the lens of satire and comedy, right? If you portray it as like, no, this is a black comedy, right? As opposed to this is a drama with action elements, the framing becomes a lot different in the way it's viewed. The fact of the matter is, I don't think most people who saw this film recognized the satirical elements of it. I don't think they picked up on, like, they glommed onto this notion of, let's burn it all down, but they failed to recognize why that's so problematic and what that springs from. Yeah. And so that's where I think we were talking, in our talk about Jojo Rabbit previously.
One of the greats.
Yes, right? One of the greats.
One of the greats. Jojo Rabbit.
One of the greats.
But there's such a fine line that you have to tiptoe, like in creating a work of satire that deals with very dark material that you can't control the way the audience perceives it. I talked about like Chappelle walking away from Chappelle's show because people were laughing at it, but they were laughing at it for the wrong reasons. Right. I think Fight Club's a perfect example of that.
All right. So that said, it's one of the greats. It's what we got. We got to move on to bets so we can wrap this thing up. We will need a piece of paper. Get our bet to end this conversation. Someone can get the last word as well. I'm going to share my screen with you guys, and we are going to go to a website. Make sure this shares correctly. Can you guys see what I have on my screen here? I have a 2-screen setup, or not yet.
I can. Is it Common Sense Media?
All right, Common Sense Media.
Oh, they have a coronavirus response. That's good.
Naturally.
Reviews for what your kids want to watch.
As everyone does. So we are going to do a Fight Club between Seven and Fight Club, being Common Sense Media ratings to see which film will be deemed as more inappropriate for children. Common Sense. So who will win this fight? Common Sense Media rates films for parents on 7 categories. So it's a 7-round fight between Fight Club and Seven. We're going to put all our answers first. I'll tell us how we'll do it, and then we'll look up and see who wins
Consumerism is one of the choices.
Isn't that interesting? That's what triggered this.
Wow. Okay.
So here's how this works. The first category is positive messages, and everything for Common Sense Media. If you don't know, it rates it on these little green dots, and from 1 to 5 or none. They'll give 0. If you click on it, you're a concerned parent. You click on it, it will kind of describe what happens and why it got that rating. Again, as someone with children, as you're kind of it's something you look at when you're like, okay, you want to see this movie? Let me see what's in there. And then you make that parenting decision. Common Sense Media, guys. You just employ some common sense.
Yes. Yeah. Are we just going to make a blanket statement about which one?
All right. So here's how it works. Round 1, positive messages. Obviously, for this one, you want we're looking for the one that's the most inappropriate for children. So for this one, we want the one with the lowest positive message rating.
Lowest positive message. Great.
For this particular one. So you have 3 choices. For round 1, is it going to be, and we'll write these down, 7. Your answers can either be 7, Fight Club, or tie, draw, right? Because they could both get 3 dots or 2 dots or 1.
Okay. Gotcha.
Which one has... Oh, man. I haven't thought about this. This was like the dinner idea. And then okay. Positive message. F. All right. I'm going. All right. Round 2, if you guys are ready. Positive, similar topic, positive role models and representations. Again, you want the lower score for this one.
It's lower. So who performed least?
Lower. For this particular, because again, we want the most inappropriate movie for a child.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Clearly onward.
All right. Oh, boy, I feel I'm going to lose this bad. All right. Number 3, violence. So now we want a higher rating. Everything moving forward, we want a higher rating. Which one's more violent? 7, Fight Club, or tie? I think we got to go.
Okay. All right.
Sex, guys. Sex can be anything. Nudity, obviously.
Is that what you tell your kids?
It can be kissing. If you kiss somebody, you will get pregnant.
The swimming pool.
So here's the interesting thing, right? 7. You would say, well, there's sex in Fight Club, but 7 has that.
There's all those like naked bodies.
The scene in that sex club thing.
Yeah.
Sex Club 7.
Right, and the guy with the knife attached add-on thing.
Yeah. Very phallic. The phallic knife.
Yeah.
That's what that was used for.
Exactly. All right, so who wins that
fight? For anyone listening.
7, Fight Club, or tie? Wow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Language. Any bad words? They even count damn as bad words in Common Sense.
Yeah.
Guys.
Yeah, it's in like the Hoover Dam.
Exactly.
What about foreign language films? They do those.
They're off the chart. All right. Consumerism. This
beautiful.
deals with product placement and like selling to children, right?
Highest score, right? We're looking for highest score.
Any of these moving forward, you want the higher score.
Yeah,
and then lastly, drinking, drugs, and smoking. You put your one down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Why do I have, let me double check. So we have positive message. For some reason I wrote, let me check my scores. Positive message.
So awkward.
Most of this. Violence, sex.
You made the rules.
Language. I wrote one extra movie down somehow.
I don't know how did you do
extra
movie?
One extra category. I had 8 instead of 7. All right, so here's how we'll do it. We'll integrity is the name of our show, viewers. What?
Integrity is one of the greats.
We know they're not viewers. We will grade at home. I will say this, now that I've written my answers down, I'm heavy Fight Club.
Yeah, same here. I got a couple of ties. I got 1 7, and I got 4 full-on Fight Clubs.
All right. So
I didn't put any ties. Whoops.
I didn't either. I couldn't do it. I
got two ties.
So here's what we'll have to do: a little
strategic.
bit of jump back and forth.
Do you have to include the number 7 instead of that V?
No, but it's funny you mentioned that as I sit around and think about bet ideas. Somehow incorporating the number 7 in the title was the first track I went on the bets for this.
Jurassic
All right.
Fight Club.
So we'll do this round by round for the listeners as well. Round 1 was positive message. 7 comes up with none.
Not present, right?
We wanted a higher score.
You want a lower score.
Your lower score. None. I call this as a tie.
So anybody got tie? So we have.
I had tie.
All right, Gabriel has a tie, so that's a point for Gabriel.
Oh, damn.
JB, I put Fight Club.
Fight Club.
You put Fight. My hope was at the end of the movie, when he's like, "You just met me at a bad time in my life." I was like, "All right, there's the positive message, guys."
Morgan Freeman's redeeming. He plays the spiritual leader. Absolutely.
Fight Club also has no positive role models and representation, but 7
It has one.
Has 1, so 7 wins that round.
That's Morgan Freeman for you.
Because that one.
You said you wanted low.
That's what it said.
Yeah.
You're right. Let's look.
So Fight Club wins.
Yeah, that's what I had Fight Club for, as in I didn't think there were any positive role models.
Most offensive. You are correct. I have Fight Club as well. We all have Fight Club?
Fight Club.
Yes, most offensive.
All right, so we all got a thing. You're right, most offensive. Thank you for correcting at home. But yeah, so they're giving Morgan Freeman. Yep, Detective Somerset. He's level-headed, wise, and kind.
That was. I was like, he's a positive role model.
All right, so
Hey,
Gabriel,
kids.
Gabriel 2. JB and
Violence.
Violence. 7.
I'm gonna say Fight Club nudges out 7 with 5 full green dots.
I put Fight Club as well. I mean, how can
4.
Fight Club be more?
I put 7. Oh, no.
5 for Fight Club.
Oh.
All right. So, I mean, I figured a movie like Fight Club, it has to get all 5s.
I just figured serial murder is, pretty violent.
No, those are violent crimes. But, all right, sex. 7 was my pick.
Really?
I went Fight Club.
All right. But the only thing was I felt the graphic, like kind of like you, JB, with the murders, right? The graphic sex stuff might be too much for that rater of Common Sense Media. And they're like, guys, we got to give it 5. Fight Club has the sex scene, obviously, and a few other things. So Fight Club has what, 4? Fight Club wins the fight. 7 only has 3.
Nice.
So that was Gabriel. And JB, did you have Fight Club for sex?
I had Fight Club.
All right. Put you back on the board, 2 points.
Yes.
Language, 7 is 3.
I have a tie.
That is a tie, guys. You had a tie too, JB?
No, I didn't get it. I'm just saying what it was.
I put Fight Club.
Wait, what? Let's read this description.
The Fight Club, after sex, female character says that she has not been fucked like that since grade school. The word shithole is used.
Just separately, shithole.
Yep. And then F word used several times.
My assumption is there are a fair number of F-bombs dropped in both of these films.
This one just says lots of swearing.
Lots of swearing for 7. But again, you had to put a tie to win that one.
And it's only 3 dots out of 5. It says lots of swearing, but
both of them were 3 dots. I thought Fight Club was a bit more vulgar in nature, but who am I?
Same.
All right, consumerism. Fight Club has 1. My choice was Fight Club on this one.
My choice, because there are no products advertised in 7.
Yeah, there shouldn't be. And nothing on.
The scented car trees make quite a prominent appearance in 7.
Yeah, JB, did you put 7?
No, I got Fight Club. I'm just
all right. You and I are tied with 3 each. There's no way we can win this one because JB and I each have 3. Gabriel has 5. But we'll just for the sake of fun, drinking, drugs, and smoking.
Yeah, I mean,
Fight Club. I put a Fight Club.
Yeah,
has to be 3 for Fight Club, none for 7.
Dang. For some reason, I put 7.
You really did?
Yeah, I just wasn't thinking.
All right, so that puts you in 3rd place, dude.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
Fight Club, vodka and beer drinking, cigarette smoking, scenes in bars. While threatening suicide, a woman talks of being high on Xanax. Ladies and gentlemen, Common Sense Media, check it out.
Xanax. What's X and X? Mario, what's X and X?
I thought those were those little amphibians. The
Axolotls.
All right, Gabriel, that is your second win in our bets. So second week in a row, too. We don't know this, but once we get to 4 wins, you get to be a greats champion, where you bring a movie that you've already said you're declaring as a great, and you're just going to influence us. So you're halfway there. You bring it up, you make a case for a movie because it only needs 1 vote, but you're 2 away from that, so plenty of time. I doubt you do have the privilege to bring a movie back for a second viewing and a second discussion. If it didn't make it, that would be 7. So unless you changed your mind, we all said not great on that one.
No, I'm good.
All right, same. So with that being said, you get the last word. You end the evening's podcast and the discussion. JB and I are unable to respond. You close it out with whatever you'd like to talk about relating our discussion today, or
I'm on mute.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think the thing that comes out of this more than anything, I think time changes perception. The lens through which I viewed both of these films when they were first released is very different than the lens through which I view them now. I still enjoyed both of them very much, despite how grotesque 7 is. I do think they're both very well made. They become problematic for me as an older man. And in particular, as an older white man looking at the world around me and wondering, have I contributed to this? So that's my final word.
All right. And thank you, Gabriel. Thank you, JB. That was tonight's last word. And thanks for talking movies, guys.
Always a pleasure.
Yes.